everyone. Today's little workshop is about palette knives and how to use them, why you use them. So I have my most used palette knives here. I don't use this a lot, but it's just a different shape so I can show you the various sizes I have. Oh, here's one more. Here's another one. This is for large paintings. So when I do landscapes that are 30 by 30 inches and I'm working on the clouds, I will use this one. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've looked at other palette knives, but usually they have a very pointy tip, so even pointier than this one. I use rounded tips. You see? Rounded tip. This has a, you can see, this is the one I use to paint most of my paintings, this palette knife. And it has a very rounded tip. And there is a reason for that. Let me find a painting for you. Oh, hold on. Here's an example. Let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. The rounded tips help me to make kind of smoother marks. I can, it mimics the brush strokes a little bit. With a pointier tip, it digs into the paint too much and creates a texture that I don't quite like. I like it to look buttery and, almost mimic brush strokes. All right, zoomed out. So there are also knives where, I don't have any, but where, do you see that there's like a dip down here? Almost like, one of the cake serving knives or something. Some of the palette knives don't have this. You want to make sure your palette knife has this. See? This kind of dip. And that's so your hand can get underneath. So if you're using this for painting, your hands won't get in your paint. And also, it helps with handling a bit more if it has that dip. Otherwise, you're working with a flat knife like this, and that's very hard to work with. So make sure it has that. And also make sure it has the rounded tip. Okay. I know you notice that I have a painting here. This is an acrylic study I did a while back, and I'm going to use this as a reference for the painting that I'm going to do today. It's a very loose painting, but this is just to show you how I use the palette knife. So that will go on the screen right now. Boom! All right. So these are the two knives I use for most of my paintings. I don't use the others unless there's a specific reason or I'm working on a larger painting than normal, but these are my trusty palette knives. I have extras of these in case they snap. Sometimes they do after a while. But yeah, just two of these. Nothing special. All right. So I'm going to start with a gessoed board here. It's not as gessoed as I would usually do. This one has been gessoed with about 3 or 4 layers, so you can see the difference. But because this is for a demo, that will do. All right. So let's start with, I'm going to just use a little bit of blue and some burnt umber. Oops. I have some paint that is dried on my palette. I just picked the skin off. There we go. I'm just going to mix a darker color there to, let's see, I'll keep that there. I'll use a smaller knife here. Not knife, brush. What am I talking about? All right. I'm going to use my brush and a mixture to just map out my composition. So here we go. This is a bit of the dark clouds at the top that you see. So I'm just kind of mapping that out. And then I'm going to map where there's some trees, some of the darker areas there. I'm not going to take up too much time because it's not about this, it's about using the palette knife. So this is just a quick sketch. All right, I don't think I have to do too much here. Go down there, just showing the separate masses that's going to show up. Okay, that's it. I can clean my brush off. I can clean my palette off with the palette knife. That's one way to use it. Keep your palette clean, no matter if you're using a glass palette like I have here, or a wooden palette, or even a disposable paper palette. It should be strong enough to, scrape, to handle scraping with a palette knife. Okay, so we're gonna mix some basic colors, and then we're gonna start adding them to the board in thin washes, okay? Okay, so the underpainting is done. It's just a thin wash of some different colors onto the gessoed board. So now the next step is to show you how to use the brush with the palette knife, so a brush and palette knife combo. All right, I'm gonna see if I can zoom in here so you can see more of the texture. So hold on. How's that? Maybe that's a bit too much. Let me zoom out a bit. There we go. There we go. All right. So let's start with the sky. I want to paint on top of this blue here with kind of a pinker color. Oops, I made that a bit too pink. Hold on. Let's go with that. Add a bit of ultramarine blue in there. Can check the color with my reference. It means, you see, as I'm mixing, I'm saving the mixes. I can use them again. That'll work for now. I'm not trying to make it exact because this is just for a demo. All right, so I'm gonna scoop up that paint with the side of my palette knife. So can you see it there? And now I'm gonna use my brush after I've cleaned it from previous colors. Dissolve it, dry it off. Make sure your brush is dry. And then you just take your brush and you scoop it. You see? And now you can just put that down over the blue lightly so that the blue shows through. And this is like the second pass through, so I'm going to have a couple more colors that I use in here. So I'm building up the painting now. So starting with thin paint, then thicker paint. So I can keep using the colors I have here. going to use that pink mix again and add more white to it. I think that's good. Now I'm going to use a thinner brush. So same thing, scrape up the paint with the side of your knife, scoop up some paint with your brush, and apply it. Now, depending on how you want it to look, if you really want to mix it in, you can. You can mix it in like this, and it gets a lighter color, or you can clean your brush off, make sure the other, paint is out of your brush, and then drag over your marks, and there you go. I know it looks a bit different from the other one. The other one is acrylic paint. I'm using oils for this demonstration, so it will have a different look to it. And also, this was painted a while ago, and things change. All right, I'll get rid of this pink. So if you see, I know you can't quite see what I'm doing because I'm zoomed in, but I am wiping things off onto the paper towel next to me, to my right, and I have a solvent container as well, so I'm cleaning my brushes. So I may zoom out in a bit so that you can see all that happening. I just wanted a close-up so you can get an idea of the thickness I'm using here. Alright, so now I'm mixing white and lemon yellow because I want a very cool yellow to go on the horizon line to kind of hint at, like there's some sunlight peeking under the clouds there. So I'm gonna take that, scoop it up, and put it down here in the horizon. It's okay if it mixes in a bit. If it does, I clean off my brush and go over it again. Alright. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out. Okay? Bear with me a bit. There we are. Okay. So I'll pull this into frame a little bit so you can see where I've been kind of wiping my palette knife and brush onto here. And here's a solvent jar. Alright. I don't know if I mentioned, or maybe I did, that I have blue tack under here so it won't move because it was moving before. So that way it makes it easier. Okay. So why don't we start, one more brush thing, and then we'll start using the palette knife, okay? Well, using the palette knife to paint with. We're gonna start doing that. Alright, so let's get some of this pink I had before, some blue, and then I'm gonna get a bit of brown to try to make a darkish, dark kind of tone. I want it to be a black, but not a black, Alright, so scrape that up. I'm gonna clean my brush off. Okay, I'm gonna dip into what was on the back of my palette knife, and then I'm just in a different direction, so up and down direction, adding in little hints of some, tree lines and hedges in the distance. That's what that's supposed to be. It's, this is a abstract piece. right, I think that works. All right, let's start using the palette knife now. So usually I would be using a medium with this, and the medium I will put in will speed up the drying time of the oil paint. Because I'm using, thicker paint, this isn't passes of thin, washes or applications of paint. This will take a while to dry, and if you want it to dry quickly, you would add some sort of oil painting medium, an impasto medium. And impasto just means thick paint. So you want to use one of those. One of my favorites is by Winsor Newton, and it's Liquin. It's called Liquin Original, and you can just add that into your paint. I have to do that in another lesson though. And you would just add that in there, and that would speed up the drying time. But you don't have to use a medium, it's up to you. Alright, so I've mixed a light blue, and that's for under the yellow in the horizon line. So with the side of the knife, you see I have the paint on the edge? I'm going to put that edge against the paint and just lightly touch it and drag. You see that? Wipe off my palette knife to keep everything clean. Put it up to the edge and drag across. Alright. See how it's catching onto the paint below. I've got a bit there, I'm scrape that off. Making sure my palette is clean at all times to keep the mix clean. All right, I think that looks good. Now I'm gonna mix a nice bright green. Okay. Use a bit of titanium white, some green here, maybe a touch of the phthalo blue. I think that's a good color. Okay, so same thing. This time I'm going to use the larger one. It's on the edge, so scrape that up on the edge. And now I'm going to put that edge here and very carefully drag that across. Okay? Make sure I wipe the edge off so I have a clean bit of paint, and I'm going to do a little bit there. There we go. Excellent. All right. So let's try one of these light yellow greens in this area to put on top of this. Let's try that out. So it's the same thing. I'm going to use the bigger one. Use some white. Some lemon yellow, and I'm mixing right back into that color. Do you see how the color underneath that green is mixing in? So I'm gonna use that. Yeah, I think that works. And I'm just gonna put that here. Same thing. That looks good there. Now I'm just gonna add, oops, got a bit of that black in there. I'm going to add a bit more yellow to it. That looks a lot better. Some more yellow. See? Do you see how much I have on there? It's thicker, slightly thicker than the brush work that I did, but it's not too thick because I can go thicker than that on the third stage. So this one, it's okay if it mixes in. So I'm pressing in a little harder, mixing in that color into the paint that was underneath. Just having some fun at, you know, adding some different texture. Alright. And another fun thing you can do with the knife, of course, is to use the tip. And let's say you want to make some marks in here to mimic grass or just add a different texture. You just dig in without paint. You can create some different marks here. You can come in and smooth it out so that's only in a certain area there. See, isn't that fun? That's fun. And there's like an orange line here. So I'm gonna take this pink here. Let's see if I can get some orange. It's a bit dried on my palette, but there's some orange in there. Gonna get that. Can scoop that on the side and you can make a line without using a brush. So you get it on the edge of your palette knife there, get a lot of it. And you put that edge on there and you just drag across. And you get a line. Okay? You can add a thicker line if you want. See? I'm gonna mix that in a bit there. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Let's see. Now I think we can go thicker down here, just so that you can kind of get the idea. I'm gonna mix the pink and that together. A little bit of green. Trying to create a neutral kind of color here for the... Now this is gonna mix in to this below. So I'm just going to mix in I think that looks good. Then I'm going to put some, I think there's some bluish purple that's supposed to go there. So let's see if I can turn this into a bluish purple. Some red there. Oh, I think that'll work. Alright. So I'm just putting that down so flat. Yeah. That was good. Put a bit more blue in it. I'm just going to mix in here. Just scraping up and down and side to side into the paint. Okay. I think that's a good introduction to using some palette knife and experimenting. You know, using an abstract is a good way to start. I'm gonna zoom in here so you can check it out. Yeah, what do you think? The great textures here, the thin, the thick, using a mixture of the brush as well adds some interest. You have some scraping here to add some texture. I could do a bit more. Okay, that creates a great texture, especially if you're, wanting to mimic grass or something, or you want to add lines into something. You can always scrape, scrape and reveal other colors. The good thing about it is if you don't like it, just smooth it out. Take it back to what it was originally. Okay, so I hope that was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye.